Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining our session today. We're excited to have you. We apologize for the little delay. Technology, right? I mean, one thing that we really need and one thing that gives us a lot of issues too. So we have a pretty amazing session organized for you. Ms. Katie Lenz and I actually are from two different campuses, but we've joined together to collaborate and give you the best information. We do have time for Q&A, so I'm going to let Ms. Lenz explain and talk about herself a little bit and her university, and then we'll move forward with the session.
Sure, thanks, Sydney. So we are doing researching, choosing, and transferring between institutions and programs. Again, my name is Katie Lenz. I am the International Admissions Representative for Oral Roberts University. I'm also the DSO for the school, so I work hand in hand with the I-20s and talking you through that process. My background is not education. My background is actually adult learning, human resources, training, hiring, so the business side of working with things. I am raised in the US, but I've traveled to 32 countries to work with students and to visit with churches and schools just to see how I can help. I am currently finishing my Doctor of Education in Higher Education this winter, and my dissertation is on culture and international travel, and it is very important to me. Culture is very important to me. I am a mother to a college senior, so I have gone through this from the parent point of view as well. And I'm host mom to many international students. A lot of my students will go through and will call me Mama Katie, and they even had a mug made for me because I am just, I guess, the mom of the school. So Ludmi, what about for you?
Okay, so I am, well, of course, Ludmi Herath, and I'm the director and the senior international officer for the university. So University of Houston, Victoria is a small university, public university. We're the baby in the system, so small. I was an international student, just like all of you who's attending this session, born and raised in England and also partly in UK also. I studied communication studies. My master's is in public policy, so I love policy. I have a love-hate relationship with policy. I have walked the steps that you are in. Pretty young when I came here, and I remember back in the day doing all the research, being overwhelmed, not understanding all these testing. So I do have a very personal connection to the international students because I still feel I am an international student, even though I'm not doing the steps you're doing. I do have over 20 years of experience, and 93% of our international students that I have worked with and helped with have secured jobs and moved on with their careers and life. I am also a mother. I have two girls. They're not in college yet, so I am not looking forward to this process because it is, I mean, we understand from both sides. So welcome to our session, and we'll go forward. So I do want to take some time to talk to you about this amazing journey. You're here, we have, 24 students right here. The 24, 27 of you are here listening to us, taking time away from your schedule because you want a better education, you want an education, you want to travel abroad, you want to come abroad. And remember, as an international student, your college university journey is extremely unique to you. And different to one another. What your needs and wants and expectations is going to be very different to somebody else's needs and wants and expectations. So I want you to be open-minded. I want you to really pay attention to what both of us are going to say today. And we're going to give you wealth of information because we've done this for many years. We've gone through possibly a lot of students throughout our journey too. So keep in mind and then ask questions. You have two people from the US, works for universities, and we're here to answer all of your questions. So hold up your questions and then make sure you use the Q&A so you can type in these questions. And also remember, US is an amazing destination for you to start your education. I know for a fact that most of you might be looking at other destinations in the world. I did as an F1 international student from Sri Lanka, I did. But US is amazing. The opportunities amazing. And this is coming from an international student, okay? So I'm telling you, it is a best opportunity, and grasp every opportunity, and you can be whoever you want to be and study whatever you want to be and US allows you to do that. So we're going to cover a couple things: how to research, your timeline, everything about studying in the US, from majors to minors to a type of colleges, working on off campus, life after graduation, preparing to study in the US, touching on immigration, how that's impacting you, everybody, transferring programs. I mean, one of the questions that we get is transferring from a different program to program and different institutions. Sky is your limit. Ask away your questions. What happens, when you don't, I mean, the hard question, visa is not guaranteed. So what happens when it does not? So a couple of colleges that you do need to know is US is a pretty large country, some things can happen in New York, and me as a person in Texas would not know what's happening in New York. So it's pretty large, and we do have over 4,000 institutions. Now, US institutions are divided, or you can pick institutions according to your wants and needs and likes. So there's community colleges, technical colleges, baccalaureate colleges, for-profit colleges, universities, nonprofit universities, tribal colleges, universities, private, public. If you're into research, that's research, master's grantings, and then special focus like liberal arts, STEM fields, law, faith-based. So there's a lot of colleges. And the reason we're here today is not to stress you out, but to give you this information so you know, okay, I'm not going to stress myself out. I want to know where I need to go to do my research. And you can really closely narrow down where you want to study, what you want to do without being stressful. This process can be very stressful.
Right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take you on a quest, a college and program quest. So it's a question I want you to think about. What are you interested in studying? No, really, try to answer that. Because, 17, 18, 19 years old, it's hard to say what you're interested in studying. So the first question would be, what do I have to think about? So some program specifics, majors and minors. What major do I choose? Do I have to choose a minor? So we'll answer the question of what is a major. It's a collection of courses and experiences required to earn a specific degree. The number of credits or units, what subject you want to study in, what theme you want to study, if it's a professional field. And note, in the US, you can always change your major. That's one of the things the international students love, is you can always change your major and coming over to the US. So then what is a minor? It's just an area of academic concentration. It's less classes, usually 6 to 8 classes, not usually listed on your degree plan diploma. You can choose many minors, and this does require planning because some majors don't always allow room for minors, some allow plenty room for minors. So an example would be like a communications major with a minor in business for someone who is interested in going into that business area. So when should you declare your major? Ludmi, do you want to talk about this one?
Sure. So one of the questions we get from students is, I don't know what am I going to study? As much as, US does allow you to change majors and select any majors, change as you go, but it's sort of like, you do need to have some idea of what major you're going into, because as an international student going in to get the visa, one of the things the visa officers ask, and one of the things that we need to do for the immigration document, is you do need to declare a major. So let's say that you're debating between biology and business, totally two different things, right? You can put both. And we as international officers, we have a place where we can put a couple of different majors. And so you can do that. And then if you come here and then later you decide, I don't think biology or business is a thing, we can change it. But remember, you all know about the US visa, right? I mean, you can get admitted, you can get all the scholarships you want, but at the end of the day, you need to secure the US visa to be able to come to the United States. Now, one of the questions and one of the requirements is, you need to prove to the US Embassy that you're a bona fide student. Bona fide student means what? You are a serious student. So the serious student means you have an idea, you are gung-ho, you know that you have an idea of the major. So because of that reason, we really tell students, research about your program, have an idea, and then and Katie can talk about this more too. The consequences of changing majors, we have a different slide. We'll talk about it, but initially, do your research and know about your program. It's critical when you at least come to the United States. After you do, hey, you have every one of us to help you, to walk you through with changing your program.
No, that's very true. So when you go to declare that major and you say, I don't know, because you haven't done the research, that visa officer can say, well, apparently you're not really very serious in your studies. Mm-hmm. And they can deny you a visa for that very reason. So definitely be very serious. Don't just fall back on the exploratory or the undecided majors. If you wait to declare your major, it makes you have a longer time in the university and possibly more money spent on tuition. So now for our overachievers out there, you say, well, I'm interested in business and biology. Well, so that's what we have to be able to figure out. Is that going to be a double major or a dual major? So the double major are 2 degrees in 2 different fields, like business and biology or communication and business. It's a bachelor's of arts and a bachelor's of science. Some schools will require you to have a reason for this. Like, why do you want to do business and biology? Some will require you to write a thesis on it, on how they go well together. You're basically taking 2 degree plans, so don't think it's going to be done in 4 years for the double major. For the dual major, this is 1 degree in 2 different concentrations, like the bachelor's of science in international business and communications, or I have 1 student getting it in international relations and political science. The degree plans will overlap a bit more, but still expect to spend more time in school. So a little note at the bottom, majors are not trophies. Having a lot of them does not make you better. Double majoring will narrow any kind of possibilities to choose the classes, have the professors that you want, your schedule's going to be cramped. Let that be the effect. If you want to do more, say if you want to do biology and business, then do biology. Maybe think about graduate school for doing that business degree. Think about moving up as opposed to just moving laterally for that. So when we're looking at the bachelor's degrees in the US, they're going to be general education requirements. They're called your core requirements, and that's going to take up about half of your degree plan sheet. Those are going to be your history, your English composition, science, Bible, psychology, art, etc. So why are these important? These are important because they're laying your foundation. You can't build a house without a foundation. So you can't build on your major courses and your elective courses until you've actually put that foundation into play. So when we look at the different types of majors, liberal arts, like English, biology, as opposed to the professional degrees, like nursing, education, pre-law, there's going to be a lot of differences in the coursework for what you're required. Coursework for liberal arts is going to be humanities. Coursework for the professional degrees are going to be very specific in that field, emphasize the practical skills. The professional degrees, usually you will follow on with some type of licensure, some kind of med school, some kind of law school, some type of grad school. This is going to be really important to know when you want to tailor your degrees. So what are we going to do with this philosophy degree? Now you've chosen your major. You think, I'm going to major in philosophy. Well, the parents always ask, and as a parent, I always ask, what are you going to do with this degree? My daughter changed her major 3 different times. That was always my question. What are you going to do with this degree? And so when we look at the literature art, the liberal arts, like literature, history, philosophy, what you gain from this is critical thinking, problem solving, research and writing, and marketplace value. So this one's going to be big because for marketplace value, you want to be employable because, right, the whole object of going to college is to be employable. You want to be able to get a job afterwards. You want to be able to see, can I be employable? Can I find a job? Will it pay well? Will it be around later in life? And am I going to enjoy it later in life? Do not choose your major based on money because it's not going to be long-term. That's just something that's not going to do well, because if you think, I love to do this, just think you're going to be doing this from 8 to 5, 5 days a week. all those weeks of the year, 40 years. Do you still love it? Are you still going to be able to do it? So you have to make sure that you enjoy this long term. So next question, does my major have to relate to a specific career? Not necessarily. Just because you are in a major does not lead you to that job by design. However, some jobs do require a license or a certificate. So please note for that, like if you're going into education, you need a teacher's certification or license. 80% of the workers in the US are in a career field not directly related to their major. Because if you are having a major in education, like Ludmila and I are both in education, we're in education, but we're not educating technically, but we're using our education degrees in our jobs. So look at the classes that you're going to be taking, because that's going to be very important on the knowledge and skills that you're going to be able to gain going forward for that. So Lumi, let's talk about research and finding your fit.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit, and then Katie's going to add as well as we go along. So as you're searching universities and maybe, destinations, we really want you to study in the US. That's our biggest advocate, study in the US. So look at what is important to you. I know you all have friends and family in the US that probably is telling you a lot of things, probably reading blogs. So like I said in the beginning, we both said that, your needs wants are quite different to other students, senior students, and your friends and your cousins. So according to research, and this research is from a Journal of International Students, funding is the key number one that is important to international students. So funding, location, size of the campus, the cost in the sense, how much is it upfront cost for me, program major rankings, safety, job placement. And Katie said in the previous slide, 80% of the people who are working in the US industry is working that is, not related to the studies. And job placement is why you're here. So you're here because you want that job. So looking at job placement should be number one priority for you. Okay, if I finish this program, what is my job placement? Return on your investment. Return on your investment means you're spending an X amount of money, and how is the job market for you? How is your salary compared to the job market? Application process. How many schools are you applying? Is longer application, longer wait time. Probability of securing the US visa, because at the end of the day, you finish all of the process of being admitted and getting scholarships, and then you have this one other step that is getting the visa. Now, funding, how much funding can my family support? For example, if we have 27, 30 students, all of your funding backgrounds are going to be quite different. So you need to work with your family, your sponsor, to know what is your funding. How much scholarships can I get? And I'm going to share some of my experiences. Is when I started looking for universities, funding was important to me and was a priority as number one. I didn't even look at location. For me, it was funding. Location, this is how my mentality at a 17, 16-year-old was. Location, I can adapt. Funding, I needed to get the funding. There's much that I can do. So when I started my college education, I went to sub-zero winter because, again, didn't look at location, it was funding. I thought I only needed a jacket. Well, you needed more than a jacket, but that's how I did. But now I'm not saying that's the right way, but funding was important to me. And how much scholarships am I getting? And location, like I said, bigger city, smaller city, crowded city, metropolitan, I went to a rural city, so I never found any of my food items in any of the shops I went to. So for me, I didn't have, my authentic food. But if you go to a larger city, you have larger community of your from people from your country. I'm in Houston. Houston is a hub of everything international. So I realized, wow, there's a larger community in all these. And same goes to any larger city in the US. But larger cities just come with pros and cons. As much as you get access to all these amenities, safety-wise, it's critical and expensive. More bigger the city you go to, apartments can be expensive. Cost with or without scholarships, cost to apply, TOEFL, SATs, all these adds up. Now, I know I did the math. I know you all can do the math too. Application fees can range from $25 to all the way to $250 or more. SAT, TOEFL, $150 to $250 per test. And then what are other fees? CBIS fee, that adds up. Visa fee adds up. Even before you know that you can step into the United States, you've already spent over $1,000. So those are things that you do need to pay count to. I mean, this is $1,000 upfront that you are investing. Application fee waivers. I mean, I know my upfront cost is this. Can I get application fee waivers? Some universities do, some universities don't. How often does the cost increase? One of the things that students do not anticipate is the cost increase. Every university's cost increases. And Katie can add also, I know for a fact that when I went to a regional public university and I'm working for a regional public university, our costs have significantly increased 3 to about 4%. So you have to anticipate those costs. And living on campus versus living off campus, is it affordable to live on campus versus off campus? Some universities mandate you to live on campus. And how expensive is the student fees? The students never think about the student fees. And, oh, this is the fee, this is the amount. And you may, when you are paying the bill, you're going, why am I paying all these fees? So those are things that you need to look at. So these are some important areas, and we do have another slide, but I want to let Katie, do you want to add anything?
Sure. This one is actually pretty important. The program major minor ranking for me, because of being in education, this is close to my heart, and having my daughter go through the different major changes. I've felt this pain with her. So the first one that we looked at, is your program available? So that's great. You're saying, you know what, I think I'm going to go to middle of America, this university, and I want to study marine biology. Well, probably not going to find that in the middle of America. You're probably going to have to look for a coastal school. Or I think I want to go to this school on the coast and I really want to study agriculture. Probably not going to find that in the school on the coast. You're probably going to have to go to the center of the state. So it's going to be very important that when you're looking at schools, you look to say, is my program available? Now, rankings. Our rankings are very interesting, because a lot of people like to boast on their rankings. I'm top 5, I'm top 10, I'm top 100. However, there's going to be some differences to look at. When you're looking at rankings, there's national rankings and there's regional rankings. If you rank high regionally, that is excellent, that is wonderful. If you're looking at those universities, I'm best in the West or whatever they're going to claim, they rank in the region area for a reason. Because if you're looking at just the national scale, those are only national sized universities. So make sure when you're looking at rankings, if they're important to you, that you are looking at all the ones that make sense, not just the #1 university. Look for the happiest students. Look for the friendliest university. Look for my program is top in this area. That's what you want to look for at the regional, and then look at the national scale too, but definitely look at both. Internships and work-related experience with the course credit. This is going to be important. So say if you're going for that biology major and you get through and you've done all your coursework and you graduate and you say, yes, I'm done, I finished, but you've had no experience in the field. How quickly do you think you're going to be able to get a job directly after graduation? It's going to take a little bit of work. It's really good to be able to have internships along with it. So you need to make sure that your program in the schools require the internships or experience in this area. So for the campus size, are you looking for a large campus or a small campus? I know for ORU, we're about 4,500 students. How about for you, Lidmi?
Same, 4,500. Actually, it's a little shy over 5,000 this year.
Nice. Okay, so that's good. So you want to be able to look at that. If you want to be a part of a campus, my undergrad was 60,000 students. I was one of very many, and it was very easy to get lost on campus. My daughter came from a small high school and she chose ORU because she says it feels like home because it's a smaller campus. She needed that smaller campus. Do you want a large classroom? Do you want small classrooms? How much attention do you need from your professor? Do you just want to be your student ID, or do you want to know them? Do you want to be known by your name? I love this one. Can you be a bigger fish in a small pond or a small fish in a large pond? How big do you want that campus to be? So I want you to talk about a little bit about safety, because I think that's going to be, from your point of view, I think it makes a difference.
Yep, and also safety. So for me, coming as a student who've never left home, so for most of you, either you left home before, you not taking vacations. Now, vacations is different. I mean, you're coming here and you're living here and you're going to school here at a different country. So safety was a number one. I mean, number one was funding for me, but safety was ranked really well. And I remember, because you all look at media, right? I mean, you look at news, you look at all these stories, and your parents have the safety question. And I remember when I told family, I got the visa, I'm going to the US, the first thing was like, oh my God, did you know this happened? Well, so you will have a lot of your family friends and even your parents say how important safety is. And the best place to start is, I mean, again, this is research, right? I mean, don't anticipate all the information that you need to do a lot of part of your research. We can show you guide you where they are. Look at how the city where you want to go in. Every city has lists there, the safety and university grounds, the police or campus safety, they run a report. So look at how these reports are for your safety. And some campuses do have a buddy program, and we will talk about the buddy program too. And what they do is they actually connect either prospective students just like yourself or an admitted students to a buddy like another international student. Another way for you to learn how safe the campus is. And so multiple different ways. When you narrow down the universities you want to go to, add them on social media, and you will actually get a lot of information off that campus through social media. And all of our campuses have very thorough social media, I would say thorough social media accounts. And for job placement, Ms. Katie will add too, in your chosen field, one of the places that you can actually do the job placement is through career-related services that is in that particular university. So if you go to a career center or a career services or whatever the department that the university states, look at their profile. They will let you know how many students have secured jobs, and go a little bit more further. Work with the international office and find out how international students have secured jobs, because you're an international student. So the domestic, like the American job placement, may not reflect the international job placement. So international job placements are a little bit different. So check how your job placement is. And just like Katie mentioned, internship co-op programs, very important. I used to work for a career center, and my expertise was actually international students in placing them in careers. And 97% of the employers wanted students that already had internships, not just one internship, at least 2 internships under their belt. So as an international student, you do have that opportunity to do internships depending on your school, depending on your field. So look at, when you're looking at the majors, just like Katie mentioned, the majors, minors, and the rankings, look at those universities and look at those curriculums if an internship or a co-op is a component of the curriculum. I will let Katie talk about her university. At UH Victoria, we have that component engraved in the curriculums, all of the curriculums. So that way we know that our students are getting that hands-on internship. Company network sessions, career services departments are amazing to schedule career network sessions. At UH Victoria, we have something called the Career Closet, social networking events. So those are, very important. Just like you're selecting majors, minors, university, location, and funding, at the end of your 4.5 years or your 2 years of your graduate program, you're looking for that job. So job placement is as important as you're doing everything else. And Katie, to add anything from your campus?
Yeah, definitely for job placements, that's going to be really important. Now, your internships can move into a job placement, or your internship can say, wow, I really don't want to do that. We had one of the students that was on one of the student ambassador teams was sharing a story with me. His major was communications, wanted to go into sports announcing, got a job with ESPN, did his summer at ESPN, and found out he really didn't like it. But he thought he really was going to like it. So the internship actually gave him the opportunity to say, what is this going to be like in real life? Can I do this? Am I going to enjoy this? So next we want to be able to talk about the application process. Lumi, I'll let you do this one.
Okay, so remember how we, in a previous slide, we talked about one of the things you need to look at is, how painful or simple or hard the application process is. And I did mention that I was an international student. I was born and raised in Sri Lanka, which is English is not the main language, but I was also raised in England. So when I'm talking to you about these things, I will explain to you how easy, simplified, or hard application processes is and requirements. Application fees and how many institutions are you applying for? On average, an international student applies to about 6 universities. And I did the same too. I applied for exactly 6 universities. This was so many years ago. And they were painful because you have to collect all the official transcripts, you have to pay application fees, write very different 6 personal statements. So it was, even the 6 was painful. As a 16, 17-year-old completing your application, it was a lot of work. And this is why we tell students, don't anticipate the process to be like done, plan it at least 12 months. The rule of thumb is 12 months from the time that you think to the time that you land in the United States. That's 12 months. In some cases, I say start early, even 12 months is, slow. Look at application fees. I mean, like I said, remember how I said, visa is the end point, but visa is not guaranteed. How much do you want to invest on the application process? Application fees can range from 25 to 225. How many institutions? It's great if you want to apply for 20 institutions to see the best package that you're going to get. But time-wise, what are some requirements? GPA, test scores, ACT, SAT, GRE, GMAT for graduate, I forgot to mention TOEFL, a personal statement, recommendation letters, interviews. Some universities do interviews. And let me tell you one of the stories very briefly. I know we are very respectful of time. Remember how I said I was born in Sri Lanka, raised in Sri Lanka, grew up in England. My English was pretty good, but I was still asked to submit TOEFL scores. And I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. This was back in the day, because I hold the citizenship from a country that was not an English-speaking country. So when I became a director and a center director, and one of the first things that I changed was our English proficiency requirement. Because English proficiency requirement, yes, you need to meet the English proficiency requirement, but sometimes some universities, English proficiency requirement might be a score that maybe you can attain, or maybe you did fulfill, but maybe will require you to go through an English program. So those are things that you want to look at. Down payments, deposits, how much payments do I need to make? Is it before or after the visa? Waitlisting universities. I mean, remember, Ms. Katie talked about ranking and majors and minors. Ranking universities may put you to a wait list. So do you want to be waitlisted, or are you going to be applying for 6 universities and selecting a university that doesn't waitlist you? Acceptance rates. Some universities' acceptance rates is like 25%. 9%, 10%, some can be 87%. Transition time. Transition time means from the time that you apply to the time that you get accepted, and the I-20s and everything. Every university is different. At UH Victoria, our standalone time is 5 business days from the time that you completed the entire application. That goes to undergrad and grad. And some universities may have 2 weeks to 30 days to 60 days, and they may have early decision times, intent to enroll times. You may need to pay fees and let them know that, yes, I'm coming in. So every institution is quite different. It's just that you need to make sure that you do the research. And I'll let Katie add on Katie's campus.
Yeah, absolutely. So transition time for us is likely to be 3 to 5 days for undergraduates. Our graduate programs are a little bit longer. They're 2 weeks because they go through a whole council. So we're a little bit longer to that. And we do have that orientation set up beforehand. So we talked about the application, how many schools you're going to apply to, how you can research it, how you can find it. So let's talk about the college. So the worst feeling you can get is saying, I have found my major. I'm definitely going to major in marine biology because I want to study whales. So where do I go to school? How do I choose? So is it what college should I choose versus what college is the best fit? So now we want to talk about the right college. Is the right college someone else's choice? Is it mom and dad's choice? Is it the counselor's choice? Is it the college with the best marketing? Wow, their Facebook page looks fantastic. I think I want to go to that school. US News and World Report #1 pick. We talked about rankings. Or are we just going to go to the college that we can afford? Because just because you can afford it doesn't mean that's where you're supposed to be going. They might not have the student body you're looking for, the major you're looking for, the professors you're looking for, because it's not about finding the best college. It's about finding the right college where you can be happy and successful. Successful students are happy students, and happy students are successful. You think it might sound silly now, but I promise you, that's basically fact on that. So how do we find the best fit? Do a self-assessment, figure out who you are. What do you want to do? How hard have you worked in school? How involved are you in the school? What makes you special? Everybody has gifts and talents. You need to figure out yours. When you look at the college assessment, narrow the field. Create that working list and a final list. For the college selection, Ludmila mentioned over 4,000 degree granting institutions in the US. Make sure that you are looking at other colleges. Don't just look to say, I think I want to go to a college in this area because everybody else I know goes to this area. Find your own way, make your own name out of this. So now that you've made the choice, this is your choice. It's a personal choice. It's a time investment. It's an investment in your happiness. Make sure it's a realistic choice. Don't just stick with safe majors. Safe majors, business, education, information sciences, unless you feel like you're supposed to be in that. Those majors will always have a job. That's why they're called safe majors. And versatility. When you're learning things for the future job market, this is a practical skill set that you can take with you and go anywhere for that. So because you want that job, how do you work towards getting that job? Why are you investing your time and resources in your education? This is a really important question because like Ludmila said before, this is an investment. What is your return on your investment going to be? Investment isn't necessarily always finances. This is your time. These are your brain cells. The gray matter between your ears is your investment right now into your education. So how do you work towards getting that job? Let's talk about some skills that are desired by employers. Communication skills, written and verbal. Every job will ask for your communication skills at some level. Honesty and integrity, so people want someone they can count on. Teamwork skills, they want someone that can work well together. Even if you are at a single job, you still work as part of a team. Flexibility and adaptability, especially in today's world, you need to be adaptable to new things. Originally, Ludmila and I would be giving these presentations right here in front of you, but we're not because we're being flexible and adaptable to what's going on around us. Experience, this is where your internships and your co-ops are going to come in. Computer skills. You know, I love to carry a hand planner and I love to write all my notes by hand. However, we are in a digital era. You need to be able to have those computer skills. Organizational skills, because the world moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Time management, again, because the world moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And self-confidence. Know what you want to do. Know that you are going to be the subject matter expert in that field and carry that confidence with you. So you can explore some majors early. Look at the program requirements. Shadow somebody in the job. Interview people in the job. Research, volunteer, again, internship and summer classes. Plan for this and think ahead. That'll allow you to give a head start into this degree. So some things to keep in mind. Don't choose a major based on income potential alone. Because just because you think I'm going to be a doctor because I'm going to make $100,000 a year, you could be miserable making that $100,000 a year. Money isn't everything. Promise. Don't let authority figures influence you too much. Absolutely listen to your parents because they want the best for you. Absolutely listen to your counselor because they want the best for you. However, like we said in the beginning, this is unique to you. This is your choice, your degree plan. Do your own research. Don't depend on just what other people say, your friends, et cetera, that talk to you. Do your own research. Get in there and answer those questions we talked about. Get the experience. Apparently, we're pretty set on making sure you get experience with these internships. Get your experience early. Don't follow your friends. You are your own person. Don't double major without a good reason. And don't wait too long to choose your major. Otherwise, you're going to be in college a lot longer than you anticipated. There's a thing called a super senior. You don't want to be one of those unless you're in the super senior courses. And don't choose your major based solely upon a romanticized image. So what do I mean by that? If you're seeing the movies and you see in that movie that there's that computer hacker and they just look so cool and they're doing all that hacking and they're getting into whatever they're getting into, and you say, oh, that's what I want to do. I'm going to do computer science or computer information technology. I want to do that. Well, I can promise you there's about 60 seconds of computer work being done in that movie that you're seeing, and you're not going to be doing it for just 60 seconds. That's going to be your 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, 52 weeks a year for 40 years. How much do you really love it? So do it because you love it, not because it looks cool. So now what? What do you do now? Virtual tours are all the rage right now. So definitely take the virtual tour of the campus. I think every university has a virtual tour out there now. Talk to people in the field. LinkedIn is going to be a great resource. So talk to people that are going to be in the business. You know, the buddy programs, absolutely. So Ludmila can go to that and finish up this slide.
Okay, so and then I do really want to agree with Katie on the romanticizing of the majors, and I'll give you a personal story, not mine, our students. You know, we suddenly increased our Indian student population who wanted to go to forensic psychology as a graduate program. It is based out of the show Quantico, and one of the leading actresses was an Indian leading actresses, and the students would not know what to say at the interview, and they would say, you know, forensic psychology because we see this movie. So I cannot stress enough not to romanticize the programs. What you see on TV is not the actuality of what that program is. It's a TV show. So the buddy program, you know, Katie and I work at the university. We give a lot of information on our respective universities. Buddy program allows you to connect with a student on a student level. So you can ask from students questions that, you know, maybe you're not comfortable asking from professionals. But we always tell you, you know, take the good advice from the professional, but in a student perspective. Like I mentioned before, safety, and maybe you want to do an on-campus job and you can ask about, you know, what's the probability, what kind of on-campus jobs. We can answer that for you, but coming in from a student, you may feel comfortable. And the buddy will actually be your buddy when you come to campus, and then you have a friend. Recommendations and personal statements. Every university is different. They do go for recommendations, personal statements. Some universities don't, because when we ask for recommendations, would you get a recommendation from a person that tells bad about you? No, you ask recommendations from somebody who, you know, glorifies your credentials. So some universities are going away from recommendations, but you will see majority of universities still are going through recommendations. Complete the application. I cannot stress enough to complete the application. If you don't complete the application and you're waiting for scholarships, some universities cannot award you scholarships until you're fully admitted. So complete the application. Don't just go here and there and apply because of the trend. That's the trend, but complete the application. That is very critical that you complete the application on time.
No, definitely, definitely. Okay, so then we're going to go into the timeline. Lumi, I'm going to let you talk about timelines here.
Okay. So timelines are very different from campus to campus. So just like Katie mentioned, you know, there are Ivy League ranking universities. ranking universities depending on what, rankings you select. Some universities are hard deadlines. So when we talk about timeline, you need to work backwards from the time that the application is due. For example, let's say the application deadline is March 15th. So work few months back. I mean, remember, you have to do tests, the results needs to be posted. So work backwards to the months and then start your application. When that application deadline is posted on the website, consider that date as a hard deadline. And some universities will have early decision deadlines, housing deadlines. So many different universities have very different deadlines. Don't anticipate that every university's deadlines are same. At UH Victoria, our deadline is June 15th for fall, November 15th for spring. That's our university deadline. And we have a rolling admissions, which means it will continue to the next semester. And some admissions are case by case. And with the pandemic going on right now, and with the uncertainty, I know for a fact, majority of the universities have amended their application deadlines or very considerate on application deadlines. Like we said from the beginning, 12 months, give yourself time. And research has shown, my research is in international students, has shown that when you rush the process and you haven't done your research, you pay that price at the US interview, at the US Embassy interview, when you're stuck in answering questions, when you don't know why you picked this university, why you picked this program. Acceptance depends on institution. We both said that our undergrad is roughly between 3 to 5 days. Graduate programs can be different. At some institutions, at my university, graduate is 5 days also. Scholarships and funding packages are very unique to universities. And extremely unique. So you want to meet the scholarship and funding packages too. Sometimes they may be at different dates. So you do need to make sure that you meet, if you want scholarships. You'll be amazed, some students don't want scholarships. I've received some of those, inquiries from students too. But if you're somebody but scholarships is important, you need to make sure that you work on scholarship deadlines. Housing enrollment and course registration deadlines are very different from institution to institution also. At our university, at UH Victoria, we need to make sure that you have the visa. Once you have the visa is when we plan everything else, from your arrival to your housing to course registration to enrollment to everything. So we don't have deadlines for international students when it comes to housing registration, because it all depends on your visa. And Katie can add too from her campus perspective too. Once enrollment is finalized, then you need to make sure the payments, right? I mean, that's one of the hardest things too. If your parents are wiring the funds, guess what? Wiring can take about 10 business days. 2 to 10 business days. So those are deadlines you need to make sure too. Some universities, you don't have that payment. Guess what happens? You're dropped from enrollment. When you're dropped from enrollment, what happens? You lose your immigration status. Your immigration status is always attached to course enrollment. You're not enrolled for courses, your immigration status goes. So you need to make sure that you make these payments as important as registration. Voila, moving date August. So moving date is one of our favorite days because we get to see you on campus and we get to put a face for all the calls and emails, and it is moving day. So Katie?
I do. I love moving day. Registration week is a favorite. It's controlled chaos and I absolutely love it. So the housing enrollment registration for ORU is like UHV, that we are going to wait till you have your visa, and then we will put everything in line. For what she was talking about with the payment, what's going to be really important to think about is when you go to make the payment, it's actually easier to make it from home. Don't wait till you get to the university to make it. I've had so many students go to make the payment and they get declined because the bank's thinking that you're being robbed. Notify the bank, I'm making this payment, this is where it's going, this is how much the cost is. Let them know ahead of time so they can help you approve it very quickly. So it's going to be something you're going to want to do from home before you arrive. So what if I change my mind? What if I change my mind in my major? What if I change my mind in my program? Life happens, but you need to ask yourself some very serious questions. Is there an alternative plan? Whether I want to change to colleges, is a change necessary? Maybe it's just a small change. Maybe you like engineering, but you want to do mechanical instead of electrical. Not too big of a change. We can handle that. How far into your program are you? Is it far enough you should probably finish and then maybe go to grad school? Is it a year into your program? That's something very serious to consider. The costs that are going to be involved, affordability, internships, moving expenses. This is going to be if you're going to change colleges. It's going to cost to move. Now think about it, when you go to switch the institution, not all institutions are going to take your credits the same. They will tell you, we're accepting all your credits. It's how they accept the credits. It's going to be very important because if you are, especially if you're changing degree plans and colleges, do they even have that major? How are they going to accept it? Is my Comp 102 going to come over as Comp 102? Is my humanities going to come over as humanities? That's something that you have to be able to consider. You have to do that research before switching the institution. So let's ask some questions. What am I looking for? Do I know what it takes? We've given you a lot of information, a lot of timelines, a lot of details. Do I know what it takes? Am I able to sustain the financial commitment for 4 years? This is super important because it's not just for that 1 year. It's not just I can afford 1 year. We're not looking at 1 year. You're looking at a degree, a full degree. So plan for the full degree. Have I done enough research about the program I'm planning to pursue? What is my return on investment? Again, this is an investment of your time, not just your money. Will the field I'm studying in bring me joy, or am I doing this for someone else? That's going to be serious. I've had so many students say, but my parents want me to be a doctor, but I don't like medicine. That you need to have a serious conversation with your parents because this is going to be you. Your parents aren't going to be in that job. Out of respect, you need to have that conversation with them. Am I thinking about doing graduate studies to pursue further? You can start thinking about this while you're still in your bachelor's degree. A lot of universities will have advanced placement, fast track programs to get into grad school. And then is this realistic? What happens if my visa is denied? What is my backup plan? Do you have a plan B for this? So now it's some time for some self-reflection. Am I choosing this because someone else wants me to? You can take a screenshot of this. This is good. You need to ask yourself these questions. Am I choosing to do this because I don't know what to do? Do I realistically understand what it takes to do this? And what kind of jobs can I get in this field? Am I willing to do graduate studies in this field? Now, this is going to be really important because if you want to be a doctor, be prepared to be in school for a long time. If you say, no, I'm just going to go to school for 4 years and be a doctor, it's not how it works. Nursing, you can do that with nursing. That's an option with nursing. Are there jobs that work with the kind of lifestyle that I want? I think I want to drive, an Audi TT, and I want to be able to have a motorcycle parked in the garage. I want a 4,000 square foot home, and I think I'm going to be a missionary. Those things don't really go together. So make sure that you are in line all the way through. And does this topic bring me joy? Sometimes it's the smallest decisions that can change your life forever. So why don't you give us some final tips, please?
Okay, so I know all of you can see the screen. Did you see how we wrote you in big letters? Because it is about you. So you decide what is best for you. You choose your major. You do your research. You are your own person. You can select the path however you want. Miss Katie mentioned, some families want you to be a doctor. Good example. I'm right here. And I was that person. And I went to the US for that, but I changed my major and then have that candid conversation with my parents. I've never been happy in the field. Look what I'm doing right now. I get to meet people like you all the time. So it's about you. You're attending university college to gain knowledge, life, and experience. None of the universities anticipate you to know everything. You are coming to university to gain knowledge, gain experience. Apart from the application process, No university is asking you to know a certain knowledge or content. So keep that in mind. Everybody who's coming in with you, as whether it's a freshman or a graduate student, you all are coming to learn. You're learning and you're developing and you're growing as young, as global citizens who are responsible global citizens. Have a backup plan. I honestly cannot stress this out. With this day and age, with current atmosphere, whether what you hear from media or not, you are going to need a backup plan, and this needs to be for your life throughout. So have a backup plan. What am I going to do if the visa is denied? If I went to US visa 3 times and I'm denied 3 times, what is my next plan? So those are things that you do need to take into consideration.
Absolutely. Did it switch on me? My apologies. Okay, so final tips for the row. We went over these quite a bit, so it's going to be a little bit of repetition. But we just want to remind you, don't choose your major based on the income potential alone. Money doesn't buy you happiness. So just remember that. Don't let authority figures influence you too much. Now that influence can be positive and it can be negative. I found a really good quote. It said, a king should be strong. He accepts counsel, but only when he asks for it. He makes it clear that the final decision is his, not his counselors. Be the king over your college and college major. It's going to be really important because it's yours. We said it. How many times did we say it? A million. This is yours. This is you. Do your due diligence. Know what you want and why you want it. Don't let I'm doing this on a whim put you in debt. Get the experience. I shared that story about the student who went into ESPN, thought he was going to do that forever, didn't really like it. Do your internship early. Don't wait until the summer after graduation. Number 5, don't follow your friends. You are your own person. Here is a terrible, gut-wrenching secret about you and your friends. You're different. Do you. This is important. Number 6, don't double major without a reason. Again, they're not Xbox achievements. We're not collecting these things like Pokemon cards. Don't wait too long to choose your major because college is an investment. And don't choose your major based solely upon a romanticized image. Have some perspective. This is about reaching your own goal and avoiding the pitfalls along the way. So we're here for some questions. I've seen a couple of the questions that have come in the Q&A. We can go over these. A lot of them are going to be about scholarships, how to get scholarships. So I answered a few of them, but Ludmila, do you want to go ahead and give your sense in on this?
Sure. And some of the questions are, how does one find information on scholarships? Will 1200 SAT score give a good chance of getting scholarships? So they are about scholarships. And, let us remind you that institutions have very different process for scholarships. And I can briefly say what University of Houston Victoria does is we do not base scholarships on SATs, because SATs is not required for admissions. So you can have 1800, 1500, doesn't matter. We require scholarships based on your exam that you do for your K through 12. Whether it's Cambridge A-levels, Cambridge O-levels, whether it's the WAEC, we base it out of that. And then not just, grades. A lot of universities will have academic scholarships, merit scholarships, athletic. And ours is a comprehensive. So we look at academics, we look at your personal statement, and we look at your resume. So scholarships are very different. And even asking the question, like when you are researching and you ask a advisor, like one of us saying, well, 1500 give us scholarships, they will not be able to answer that question because you have to submit an application, your transcript. So there's a lot that goes into scholarships.
So there was one that came up here that, Ludmila, I'd like you to go ahead and talk about, ask about working and going to school. So can you talk about from your time of being on an F1 visa and working and going to school at the same time, because you can give a very personal answer to this one.
So like I said, funding was very important to me, and I did work at an internship at a bank back in Sri Lanka called Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank, HSBC. So I wanted to work. So I did full-time hours for full-time classes, which is 12 credits, 4 classes, and sometimes I did 15 15 credits, 5 classes, if a class is 3 credits, and I did 20 hours every week, never missed a work week. Now, do I recommend that to everybody? No. But if you are one of those students who can cope up, definitely. First semester, I would urge you to try to see how, test the waters, right? Register for 12, 15 credits, and then see if you can cope with 10 hours. So I do recommend you to work, because as an international student, you are competing. If you are looking for job experience before college, before a college degree and after a college degree, I can tell you I'm here today as the director, and I'm overseeing many staff, and I'm the senior international officer because of all the on-campus employments that I did as an undergraduate student and a graduate student. And it is extremely valuable. So it is how you navigate, you multitask. All these are going to be skills that you're going to be learning. Remember what Katie mentioned? The skills that we need: communication, time management. There you go. What best way to show your employer that you can manage time? Working on campus, right? And then going to school. So it is all what you can do. Again, US and in any institution you pick is going to walk you through with that process. They're going to support you. They're going to be there for you. So I strongly recommend working. And even for my own kids, I tell my own kids, anybody, any international student, get a job on campus or a volunteer position, because that puts you to have work experience in the American standard, right? I mean, because you don't know, you've never worked in the United States. So this will give you that platform.
Definitely, thank you. So another one of the questions was, what is the process to ultimately study medicine in the States or at your school? So in the States, to study medicine, which is a question I think we get a lot of times over, it's a very popular question. So how it works in the United States is you are going to go for your undergraduate degree, typically in what you want to study: chemistry, biology, biomedical engineering. You go for your undergraduate degree with an emphasis on either health professions or pre-medicine. Then between your junior and senior year, you take the MCAT, the Medical College Assessment Test. You have to score high on that MCAT, no doubt about it, because medical school is very competitive. It's probably the most competitive thing to get into. So you have to score high on your MCATs. You have to do well on your grades. So start from the very beginning. I don't care if it's your communications class or your, medical ethics biological class. You have got to score very high in all of your classes, again, because it's difficult. So if you're going to study medicine, it's an undergraduate degree, and then it is medical school if you can get into that. It's competitive. And then you have to do internship, residency, and fellowships. So depending on what kind of doctor you want to be will depend on how long you want to spend in school. So an alternative to that in studying medicine is nursing. Because if you think about, I think I want to work in surgery, maybe not I want to be a surgeon, but I want to work in surgery, you're going to spend about 11 to 14 years learning to do that. However, with nursing, you're going to spend 4 years, and then you can start practicing. Again, with the doctors for the medicine compared to the nursing, if you go into pediatrics and you think, I love this, I'm going to be a pediatrician, and you're going to study and you do all your 11 years to get your doctorate, now you're a pediatrician, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years later, you no longer love those screaming children. You can't change until you go back and learn a different discipline in the medical field. Nursing, you can go and be a nurse. 5 years later, I think I'm tired of these screaming kids. I think I'm going to go work family practice. I think I'm going to go do, Doctors Without Borders. There's many things that you can do as opposed to just being a doctor. So please, if you are considering medicine, please consider nursing, because that is going to be important for that.
I do want to add to Katie too. This is one of the questions we received too. And plus the cost, right? I mean, the medical school can be expensive, right, Katie? I mean, medical schools are super expensive, and scholarships proportionally to the cost, very little. So you do need to consider, medical school, the cost. And so all those adds up. And again, just like Katie said, other countries have MBBS and MDs for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, not in the United States. And this goes for almost all professional fields like dentistry. You need to go to dental school. Even veterinary, even law, you need to go to law school. So these are things that, you do need to look at, is, how long the program is and the cost. Scholarships are very rare. Maybe Katie can add to, but I know the scholarships are very rare for these professional schools. And even if they do give scholarships, it's still a big chunk of money that you're looking at.
Definitely. So we really appreciate the questions, but we are out of time for these questions. We will make sure to get some details from you and send you some information. If you want details on us, we've got that in our exhibit booth. So please come by and visit us in our booth. You can ask us private questions on that chat. We'd love to be able to talk to you about anything for the undergraduate degrees, the graduate degrees, working on campus, what it's like to be an international student, anything that you can do. Please let us help you through this process. We are here for you. We love to work with international students. I mean, I'm gonna say that for both of us. We love to do this. We love our jobs. Please let us do our jobs. Ask us all the questions, and we will be there for you. So thank you so much for stopping by. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you in the booth.
Thank you so much.